Hi, and welcome back to Extra, your LGBTQIA+ news roundup in which I serve you all the tea so that you don't have to do the deep diving yourself. In this video, I've got for you politics, crime, culture, sports, science, and our awards segment with the ew and the slay of the week. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for clicking on my video. Hi, I make videos about queer news and also about mental health. If you enjoy this video, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and without further ado, let's get into it. The politics segment this week is packed, so we're going to do a quick fire round to try and get through everything as quickly as possible. First things first, Greece has legalized same-sex marriage and in the same fell swoop has granted equal adoption rights to queer couples. This makes Greece the first Christian Orthodox country to have marriage equality, and also the first Southeast European and the 37th country in the world to grant same-sex marriage rights. The bill has been approved by Parliament. It only needs to be published now for it to come into effect. And Greek Prime Minister Mitsotakis aptly stated, "The reform that we are legislating today will make the life of some of our fellow citizens that much better, without, and I emphasize this, taking away anything from the lives of the many." A quick mention to celebrate the fact that the Mumbai Pride Parade is back after a 4-year hiatus. The last time it took place was in 2019, where 8,000 people turned out, and this year it was back with roughly 1,000 attendees. A Japanese court has ruled that a transgender man by the name of Takakito Usui can now change his gender marker on his official identification papers without needing sterilization surgeries, which was the case in Japan until very, very recently. This also means, because in Japan marriage equality is not a thing, that he can finally get married to his partner of many, many years, as they will now be recognized as a heterosexual couple.
I just have a lot of feelings.
Russia fairly recently declared the LGBTQ+ community an extremist international movement.
Ew.
And since that law has been passed, there have already been many very unfortunate incidents in Russia. About a month ago, Russian police raided gay-friendly pubs and bars, and in the past couple of weeks, 3 people have been either fined or jailed for displaying pride flags. 2 of those people had to pay fines for posting rainbow flags on social media, but a woman by the name Anastasia Yershova was jailed for 5 days for wearing frog earrings in rainbow flags. In the court hearing, the defending lawyer stated that her earrings were in 7 colors, a 7-colored rainbow, rather than the traditional rainbow pride flag, which is 6 colors. But big surprise, the Russian court did not care, and she did have to spend 5 days in jail for wearing those earrings. The complete irony of calling our community extremist and then jailing someone for wearing rainbow earrings. In that same vein, language learning app Duolingo is currently under investigation in Russia for using the words gay and lesbian in learning prompts.
Jim told me you could buy gaydar online,
which the Russian media is calling extremist propaganda. Duolingo thankfully has doubled down on the fact that their users are from all over the world, from all walks of life, and deserve to see themselves reflected in the learning prompts on Duolingo, and that Duolingo will not be removing those prompts from its platform, which may result in Duolingo being blocked in Russia. As ridiculous as all of that is from an outsider's point of view, I truly feel for our brothers and sisters in Russia for having to deal with that on a daily basis and for having to be so incredibly careful how they present themselves. As feared, Russian authorities are abusing this law in order to crack down on anyone who they deem inappropriate or doesn't fit their idea of a good society. So we'll stay tuned and see what more there is to come. Gay Conservative UK Member of Parliament Mike Freer is going to step down after the current parliamentary period because he has been receiving death threats and an arson attack on his constituency office. Presumably for being gay. It has reached a point now where he is so afraid of being attacked every day going into work that he is not going to run to be elected in his constituency again after this current term. And I thought it was important to mention this because it shows what the rhetoric around the LGBT community is doing in terms of violence against our community in the country. The hate that we are reading about and hearing from our politicians is manifesting in violence in our everyday, in our real life. The biggest irony in this being that Mike Freer is a Conservative MP, and it is his very own party that is spewing hate against his and our community. And even though I'm not a Conservative, and I personally think that being LGBT and Conservative is somewhat of a contradiction, I really feel for Mike Freer, and I can't blame him for not wanting to go through that anymore. Following the leak of a proposed change in the rules around driver's licenses in the US state of Florida, Floridians have staged 37-minute die-ins at their local DMVs. This proposed rule change would stop transgender people from changing their gender markers on their driver's licenses, regardless of whether they had already been granted the right to change their gender markers on other identification. And because their driver's licenses can't be in conflict with their other existing identification, it will essentially mean that they can't change their gender markers anywhere. These protests took place in the cities of Miami, Orlando, Tampa, Jacksonville, Tallahassee, and Gainesville on the 9th of February, and part of the protest's aim was to urge people all over the country to write to the White House and ask the federal government to step in against the extremely transphobic laws that have been proposed and passed in Florida over the last year or so under Ron DeSantis, who we have to thank for much transphobic and homophobic violence and hate in Florida over the recent months/year.
Why are you the way that you are?
And who will feature in this video later on in the crime segment. Yay. In Yemen, the armed religious group Houthi has sentenced 7 people to stoning and 2 to crucifixion for, quote, homosexual crimes. Another 13 have been sentenced to death for, quote, spreading homosexuality as if it were some sort of disease. And videos from the 24th and 25th of January show people being publicly flogged, all of which is so dystopian and medieval in its torture practices. I mean, can you imagine somebody getting crucified? Yes, what Jesus went through. It honestly makes me feel sick to my stomach to know that LGBT people are being tortured and killed anywhere in the world in this modern day and age. The Houthi are the ones carrying out these extremely violent actions, but in Yemen, all parties still prosecute and target the LGBT community. Torture, threats, and harassment are on the everyday agenda in Yemen, and the aim is quite clearly to spread fear among the population in order to get them to submit to whatever the government wants. Just horrific, and I'm not even sure what else to say about it. Which brings us to the crime segment. Trigger warnings, violence, murder, attempted murder, and hate speech. If you don't want to hear about those things, skip ahead to culture. Here is the timestamp for that. Brianna Ghey's murderers have been named and sentenced to life in prison. Brianna Ghey is the British trans girl that was brutally murdered pretty much exactly a year ago here in the UK. And I have spoken about her before, but have realized that I've been mispronouncing her last name, spelled Ghey. I thought it was gay. It's actually Ghey. The 2 murderers are Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe, both aged 16, which means they were aged 15 a year ago when they murdered Brianna, have both been sentenced to life in prison, which in the UK means 20 plus years. During the attack, Jenkinson and Ratcliffe stabbed Brianna 28 times in her head, neck, chest, and back. And Scarlett Jenkinson specifically has told her psychiatrist in the meantime that she had enjoyed the killing and found it sexually arousing. I can only imagine how horrific it has been on Brianna's family to have to sit through court sessions hearing stuff like that. It makes me feel sick to my stomach. I can't imagine what it would do to the parents. Both families of the 2 murderers have welcomed and accepted the court's ruling, but of course it's hard on them too because they have essentially also each lost a child and have to forever live in the knowledge of what their children have done. And Brianna's mother's suffering has caused her to start a fundraiser in order to be able to provide mental health training to teachers to hopefully prevent another attack like this. Her fundraiser was aiming for £50,000 and has recently even surpassed the £70,000 mark. I'm going to link that down in the description in case you want to check it out. A very worthwhile cause in memoriam of Brianna. Another transgender woman has been stabbed in North London just a few days ago. She was attacked by a group and stabbed 14 times and then thankfully made it to hospital where the medical team were able to rescue her, and she's been since released and is physically at least fine. 4 people have been arrested for this crime, but only one of them attended the court hearing, that person being 19-year-old Summer Betts Ramsey, who was charged with attempted murder. In a Tampa park in Florida in the US, a gay man has been shot in broad daylight while walking his dog. The victim was 52-year-old John Walter Lay, and the shooter, a 65-year-old by the name of Gerald Declan Radford, who had been harassing Lay for over a year prior to the attack, and yet nobody has done anything about it. Which brings me back to Ron DeSantis, who we have to thank for much of the queer-phobic violence and hate in Florida over the last year or so. Again, the rhetoric that we hear and read about from our politicians, from our leaders, and also from anyone in the public eye, celebrities, athletes, artists, whoever, matters. And it will manifest in the public and in everyday life. And thanks to a complete lack of gun regulation, can just get a rifle and shoot someone in broad daylight. Yeah. My condolences go out to John Walter Lay's friends, family, loved ones, for having to mourn the death of somebody who was healthy and happy and thriving in life. And finally, 28-year-old transgender blogger SimSim was stabbed and killed in Iraq. I don't know SimSim's pronouns, so I'm going to refer to them with they-them pronouns. SimSim was also stabbed multiple times before dying in a city centre. Unfortunately, I don't know any more about that because Iraq doesn't release information publicly in the same way that many other countries do. What I can tell you is that Iraq ranks as one of the most homophobic countries in the world, and that 55% of the Iraqi population believe homosexuality to be, and I quote, unjustifiable. Ew. Now that that's behind us, let's focus our attention on more positive things. Will Ferrell's documentary film, in association with his transgender best friend, Harper Steele, has been picked up by Netflix. This is a documentary that focuses on Ferrell and Steele's friendship. They've been friends for 30 years, and Steele only came out as trans in 2022, and how Will Ferrell has been prompted by that coming out to learn about trans people and the LGBT community and the struggles they face and what it means to transition, and so is a very educational documentary for many out there who have never been in direct contact with a trans person and haven't witnessed any of those things themselves. We don't have a publication date yet, but we know that the film has been very positively received at Sundance Film Festival, and we also know that Netflix is one of the largest streaming platforms in the world.
I'm obsessed with this.
And I, for one, am thrilled that this film has been picked up by Netflix and that hopefully it'll be a learning experience and something that prompts empathy in many, many viewers. An annual report conducted by GLAAD called The State of LGBTQ Inclusion in Video Games has shown that nearly 1 in 5 gamers is LGBTQ. The specific number is that 17% of all active gamers are queer, with half of those gamers saying that they feel more accepted by their online gaming community than they do in real life, which just shows what a lifeline video games specifically can be for people of all ages and all walks of life. 75% of them have said that video games allow them to express themselves in ways that they don't feel comfortable doing in everyday life. And yet, as of November 2023, only 2% of all available video games on all platforms, I'm talking Steam, Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox, feature queer characters and/or queer content of any kind. It begs the question, why? What is holding people back from including more queerness in their games, especially knowing that studies have shown that 2/3 or so of all gamers would not be bothered and/or would even welcome seeing queer characters in their video games. So those who are trans and homophobic and who lash out at wokeism on their favorite games are very much in the minority.
People aren't thinking about you the way that you're thinking about you.
And yeah, I guess I look forward to more queer characters in video games. Spain has its first out LGBTQ+ matador in Mario Alcalde, who is 31 years old and who has recently come out as pansexual. I have much to say about the cruel practice of bullfighting. However, in the interest of time, I am not going to talk about it in this video. I'm just going to link a very good article down below in the description if you want to read up more about it. And Puma, who is the official sponsor of the English Football League this year, has unveiled its design of an LGBTQ+ supportive football for this season. I thought this was important to mention, especially against the backdrop of FIFA recently banning Pride-affiliated merch and designs and symbols on the pitch in general. And so the fact that the official football for this tournament is going to feature a pride flag in its design is really powerful and meaningful, and I really appreciate the sentiment. Football is a sport that is riddled with homophobia, and it's so funny to me because the same people who always call us the snowflakes and that we're offended by everything are now screaming that this ball is, quote, ramming wokeism down their throats. And I mean, the design is so subtle. It's like not even when the ball is moving, you can't see it. It's not like the entire ball is a whole rainbow. So like, just get over yourselves.
Sound good? Doesn't matter.
Like, don't you have more important things to be angry about? On to religion. And this one I'm excited about because it's my favorite talking point of this video, right? Are you ready? I present to you the controversial artwork depicting Jesus during the Passion of Christ for the Holy Week in Seville, Spain, leading up to Easter, which conservatives have called homoerotic, sexualized, effeminate, and inappropriate. The criticism partly being because Christ is usually depicted with a crown of thorns and suffering and blood-stained, and in this picture he isn't. But then at the same time, according to Christianity, he died over 2,000 years ago to absolve you from your sins. Don't you think that we've seen enough pictures of him suffering? And don't you hope also that he's now no longer suffering? Does every single picture showing Jesus have to show him in agony? But also prompts me to ask, fellas, is it gay to be good looking? Because that is the only thing people are upset about. They're basically saying he's too pretty and therefore it's inappropriate. If you think he looks gay for whatever reason, leave a comment, let me know. But also, I guess, let's welcome Jesus to the LGBT community. Oh, yes. And an online campaign aimed at removing this poster has gained 14,000 signatures. Which, again, don't you have more important worries in your life? And finally, a quick mention of a survey of 84,000 trans Americans, of which the overwhelming majority have said that transitioning has improved their life. Over 94% of those who had started transitioning said that their life has been made better by transitioning, that they are happier now and that they enjoy their lives more. The survey asked people from all walks of life, all over the US, all ethnic backgrounds, all ages, and is therefore statistically representative of trans people all over the country. And the reason I thought it was important to mention is because it directly contradicts an argument that transphobes like to use, which is, what if you regret it later? And sure, you know, the same could be said about any plastic surgery or whatever, but the overwhelming majority of trans people don't regret transitioning. And I'm a huge fan of science and data and listening to facts rather than letting our fear inform us. So if you are ever in an argument with somebody who is arguing against gender-affirming procedures, forward them this study. Again, link in the description as always. Wow, that was a lot. But I don't want to leave you without handing out our awards. The Slay of the Week goes to Yassified Jesus for making Catholics and conservatives uncomfortable for absolutely no reason whatsoever. And also, on a much more serious note, to the Greek Parliament for legalizing same-sex marriage. I am thrilled. And the ew of this week goes to all the extremely queerphobic governments that have been featured in this video. This week, those are Russia and Yemen, but don't be fooled, there are many more out there. Unfortunately, I don't really know what to say, except that all of the worries and all of the fears that transphobic and homophobic governments try and instill in the population about our community. For example, the statement that if we let people be gay, the family will die out and humanity will go extinct, which is such bullshit because just statistically that could never happen. But also, the world population has increased so dramatically over the past couple of decades that I really don't think we need to worry about extinction in terms of people not procreating anymore. I think the much more pressing issue would be climate change and having a planet that is actually inhabitable for future generations, but that doesn't seem to be a worry for conservative governments. Paradoxically, that is just one of many examples of their rhetoric just not being based in fact at all. Just say you hate anyone who differs from the norm. There is no logic behind that argument. It's just your feeling, your personal opinion. You know, at least package it that way. Don't try and make up wrong facts to support your bigoted stance. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you being here. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to my channel and I'll see you here next time. Bye.